The first time my new neighbor's little girl saw the tattoo on my forearm, she stopped dead in the middle of the sidewalk, pointed with wide eyes, and shouted loud enough for half the street to hear. "Mom! He has yours." Everything around us went silent. Her mother froze. I froze. And in that single moment, I saw a look on her face that wasn't embarrassment. It was fear. Not the kind that comes from being recognized. The kind that comes from a memory you've spent years trying to bury. She quickly grabbed her daughter's hand. "Emma, sweetheart, let's go." "But Mom." "Now." They disappeared into their house without another word. I stood there holding a bag of groceries, staring at my own tattoo like I'd never seen it before. Because I knew exactly what it looked like. A tiny blue swallow flying over a compass. It wasn't a common design. I'd spent months sketching it myself after my younger sister died in a boating accident 12 years earlier. The swallow represented finding your way home. The compass represented the sister who never did. The tattoo artist had promised me it was one of a kind. So why had that little girl insisted her mother had the exact same one? For the next week, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Not because I believed there was some mysterious connection between us. But because of the fear I'd seen in her mother's eyes. People don't react like that over matching tattoos. They react like that over painful memories. My name is Daniel. I'm 37, divorced, and work as a physical therapist. After years of rushing through life, I'd finally bought a small house in a quiet neighborhood outside Portland. Across the street lived Laura and her 8-year-old daughter, Emma. Everyone on the block adored Emma. She drew chalk rainbows on the sidewalks. Delivered homemade cookies every Christmas. And somehow remembered every neighbor's birthday. Laura, on the other hand, stayed mostly to herself. She smiled politely. Kept her lawn neat. Worked from home. Never invited anyone inside. I figured she was simply private. Until the tattoo. After that afternoon, something changed. Whenever Laura saw me outside, she'd quickly turn away. If Emma started talking to me, Laura gently interrupted. She wasn't rude. She was avoiding me. I finally decided enough was enough. One Saturday morning, while we both happened to be collecting our mail, I spoke first. "I'm sorry if this sounds strange," I said carefully, "but your daughter mentioned my tattoo." Laura's shoulders stiffened. "I know. I wasn't trying to make anyone uncomfortable. I know." I waited. She looked down at the stack of envelopes in her hands. Then quietly asked, "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Where did you get that design?" "I drew it myself." Her eyes slowly lifted to meet mine. "When?" 12 years ago." She closed her eyes. Just for a second. When she opened them again, they were wet. "I think we need to talk." She invited me inside for coffee. The house was warm but surprisingly empty. Very few family photos. Almost no decorations. As if someone had deliberately avoided displaying the past. Emma was upstairs coloring. Laura wrapped both hands around her coffee mug before speaking. 12 years ago, she whispered, "What happened to your sister?" I told her everything. About Claire. About the storm. About the search cruise. About never getting to say goodbye. Laura listened without interrupting. When I finished, tears rolled silently down her cheeks. "I remember that storm." "You do?" "I was there." Every hair on my arm stood up. "What?" She nodded. "I wasn't supposed to survive it either." She rolled up her left sleeve. There it was. The exact same swallow. The same compass. Same placement. Same faded blue ink. I stared without saying a word. Finally she explained. 12 years ago. I was 23. I was struggling with depression. I had run away from everyone who cared about me. She swallowed hard. I met a young woman at a marina the day before the storm. My heart pounded. "Claire?" Laura nodded. I didn't even know her last name. She smiled through tears. She noticed I was sitting alone. She bought me hot chocolate. She spent almost 3 hours talking to me. I could suddenly picture my sister perfectly. She had always talked to strangers. Always. Laura laughed softly. She kept saying, "You matter more than you think." Those were Claire's favorite words. Laura continued. The next morning, before I left town, she convinced me to get matching tattoos. I blinked. What? She said whenever life made me feel lost, I'd remember someone believed I deserved to find my way home. I couldn't speak. I'd only known her one day. Laura smiled sadly. But she treated me like I'd been her friend forever. Then her face crumbled. Hours later, I heard about the accident. For 12 years, I believed the tattoo existed only because of my grief. I never imagined someone else carried it because of my sister's kindness. Laura looked down. I've wanted to find her family so many times. Why didn't you? I felt guilty. Guilty? I lived. Silence settled between us. Then she whispered the words that broke me. If she hadn't stayed with me that afternoon. I wasn't planning to see another sunrise. The room blurred through my tears. Claire hadn't simply been kind. She had saved a life. Without ever knowing it. Laura wiped her eyes. I've spent 12 years trying to deserve that second chance. She told me about volunteering at shelters. Fostering children. Helping women escape abusive relationships. Eventually adopting Emma after years in foster care. Everything good I've ever done, she said, started because your sister believed I could become someone better. I couldn't stop crying. Because that sounded exactly like Claire. She never tried to change the whole world. She just changed whoever happened to be standing in front of her. Over the next several months, Laura and Emma became part of my life. Emma loved hearing stories about Miss Claire. She drew pictures of swallows constantly. Sometimes she'd hand me one and say, "This one's flying to your sister." I kept every single drawing. One afternoon Emma asked me something unexpected. Do you miss her every day? Every day. Does it ever stop hurting? I thought carefully. No. She frowned. That's sad. It is. Then how are you smiling? I looked toward Laura, who was planting flowers in the yard. Because sometimes people leave behind enough love to keep helping others long after they're gone. Emma considered that for a moment. I think that's like superheroes. I laughed. Yeah. It kind of is. Months later, Laura invited me to a community fundraiser for foster families. She was receiving an award for years of volunteer service. When she stepped onto the stage, she surprised everyone. Instead of talking about herself, she told the audience about a young woman she'd met for only one afternoon. She never used Claire's last name. She simply said. One stranger chose kindness over convenience. She probably thought it was an ordinary conversation. It wasn't. She saved my life without ever realizing it. Then Laura looked directly at me in the audience. If her brother hadn't moved across the street, I might never have had the courage to say thank you. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. After the ceremony, dozens of people came to hug Laura. Others thanked me for sharing my sister's story. Driving home that night, I realized something had quietly changed inside me. For 12 years, I believed Claire's story ended in the storm. It didn't. Her story had continued inside Laura. Inside Emma. Inside every foster child who found a safe home. Inside every family Laura had helped rebuild. Kindness has a strange way of refusing to die. Nearly a year after that first awkward encounter on the sidewalk, Emma came running across the street holding a small gift box. I made something. Inside was a handmade bracelet. Tiny blue beads. A silver compass charm. And a little swallow carved from wood. For your sister, she said. I think she'd like it. I looked at Laura. She smiled. She definitely would. That bracelet now hangs beside the photograph of Claire in my living room. Visitors sometimes ask about it. I tell them it represents a stranger who became family. A little girl who reminded me that love echoes farther than grief. And a sister whose greatest legacy wasn't the tattoo she inspired. It was the life she unknowingly saved. All because she chose to sit beside someone who looked lonely, and decided they were worth talking to.